Hey everybody, before we get started, I just want to remind you this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Ahago Comics and Drago66. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can access episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it would really help us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's time once again to talk about Star Wars X-Wing miniatures by Fantasy Flight Games. As entirely predicted last week, hey, guess what? First Order Conversion Kit article, aka the Stealth Upsilon article. Yeah. Actually, this is... I mean, it's a little disappointing, because there's quite a few ships in the First Order Conversion Kit to cover, I think. But, yeah, no, it's basically like the Resistance one. I feel like this kind of sucks the fun out of if and when they eventually re-release everything, but who knows, maybe they'll have some other made-up stuff to go on. Anyway, we'll talk about this, we'll talk about a couple of ships, we'll talk about some crews. Unlike even, the Resistance kit, this is almost exclusively all shit that's going to go on the Upsilon for a while, because it's all crew. And a couple of pilots. Also, yeah, supposedly Star Wars Resistance has come out. I haven't seen any of it yet. I'm kind of Like, general consensus from people seems to be that, yeah, it's very much a kid's show, right? So there's some interesting, like, points and stuff, and they've got, like, designs for T-85s and some kind of First Order Interceptor that look really cool. Well, the Interceptor looks really cool. The T-85 I think I can take or leave. I'd really like to see it rendered in something with a budget, but that's just me. I'm not averse to the design on the whole. I'd just like to see it with, you know, more detail, like if we were, you know, spending a few $1 million building miniatures or something. Anyway, speaking of miniatures, let's go ahead and move into the First Order Conversion Kit. So as usual, we're going to talk about pilots and ships first. Like I said, there's really only the Upsilon here. So we have re-revealed Lieutenant Dormit's Initiative 2 as the Hypercom Specialist. So looking at the underlying chassis, the space frame, as it were here, the Upsilon continues to be the Upsilon. It's got some new additions. It's got Focus, Target Lock, Reinforce, Coordinate, and Jam, all white. Very diverse action bar. Lots of support potential here. It's got the same 6 hull, 6 shields, same 1 agi, same 4 attack, shocking people, also proving that maybe kind of sort of Rebel bias is not as biased, at least, because they definitely do have that beautiful 4 dice. Also, apparently, judging by their ship ability, they've picked up a cannon slot because they have linked battery now as a built-in ability, which is exactly like the old upgrade card. When you perform a cannon attack, roll 1 additional die. So, for ions, jamming, tractors, that's all a hell of a lot of extra dice. Like, this thing with an ion cannon is pretty scary. It can, out of range 1, can actually ion some heavier duty ships, if you get good hits. So that can, especially with the fact that it has the jam action, which probably is why you would not want a jamming beam, but you know what I mean. You can definitely get some diverse debuff potential on the target, or you can roll fucking 5 dice HLCs in your bullseye arc to go with your fucking 5 dice at range 1. Yes, I'm swearing a lot, but it's a lot of dice, especially for this system. The crippling weakness, I would say, of the Upsilon is that it has the exact same dial as it did in 1E. And unlike the Lambda, which also has the exact same dial, it did not get a rear arc. So it's a little sluggish to turn around. It's still got white turns, it's still got a red stop, but if your opponent has a lot of agile ships, you're going to have some tough time getting on target, which also means that you're going to have a harder time maneuvering around that reinforce if that's what you want to do. But hey. Anyway, Lieutenant Dormit's ability is set up. After you are placed, other friendly ships can be placed anywhere in the play area within range 0 to 2 of you. So basically his same ability. And if you're wondering, hey, is there a thing I can do to place him first? Yes, we'll talk about the tech upgrade later at the end, because it's a different type of upgrade. But yes, we'll cover it. But the short version is, yes, you can basically do the same trick you would do with Dormit's before. Neat. Other than that, not a lot to talk about with this. I mean, Dormit's primary use is going to be that he might be the cheapest. I don't know, there might be an I-1 who's generic, who goes below him. Or, you never know, they could have an I-2 generic who costs like a point or 2 less. Actually, I need to double check. It's been a while since I looked. Are there a lot of cases where generics are a point, or are they 2 points cheaper if they're the same initiative? Whatever. That's something I should do more before I do these videos, is research into other stuff. But, you know, Looking at just the cards as they're presented helps me keep on focus also, because this video is going to be long. Other than that, yeah, nothing really new to talk about with Lieutenant Dormitz. These are probably going to be pretty expensive with the 4 dice, but maybe not super expensive, because they've only got so much HP to go around, and the 1 agility, and the dial's kind of middling, so hopefully FFG can price these pretty fairly. Let us move into the other pilot we know for sure, good old Stridon. So, Major Stridon, Stentorian Commander, number 4 on the I slot. And so, Stridon's effect is also pretty similar to the last edition, though a little more, second edition to up. So, while you coordinate or resolve the effect of one of your upgrades, you may treat friendly ships at range 2 to 3 as being at range 0 or range 1. So basically, any upgrades, crew mostly, but also potentially tech, because this thing has a tech slot, presumably most, sequel-era ships do. The main thing here is that Stridon does what Stridon did in the first edition, is coordinates or upgrades, like crew, like I said, work at longer ranges, with no additional cost, other than the fact that you have to bring Major Stridon, who's probably not ultra cheap, but hopefully not super expensive, like we said. But yeah, there's not a lot else to talk here. It's just, Stridon just makes a good platform for a lot of upgrades that have to do with friendlies, like General Hux, as we'll see. I think that was a big idea with Hux swarms in the past. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I guess there's not much else to talk about with Stridon. Just his abilities there, it's the thing. It'll help you out a lot. We will probably reference Stridon a couple of times as we move through the crew, which we're going to move into. So, Captain Phasma. Captain Phasma has a crew slot for the First Order, unique obviously, and sights. At the end of the engagement phase, each enemy ship at range 0 to 1 that is not stressed gains 1 stress token. So, she basically has Mara's old ability, but second edition-ified, also includes like range 0 and stuff. Some people are a little upset. Personally, I'm kind of glad, because most people didn't like Mara's ability. Like, a lot of people said it wasn't worth it compared to just other methods of stress, like Rebel Captain was usually more direct, and so on. But also, like, Korn and Kyle don't have any force points in second edition, even though they're still in. Though that also kind of makes sense, because when they're piloting their ships, they're not really doing anything Jedi-y, so they still have potent abilities a lot of the time, but they're not, like, force-dependent. Especially given the way they've treated Inquisitors, if Mara does resume in a later expansion pack, which, she might easily. Like I said, they brought Korn and Kyle and lots of other really big EU names back for the second edition, so it's not like there's a moratorium. But if they did, she'd probably have a force-based ability, like maybe it would be to spend a force pip to stress an enemy, or something like that. But anyway, as Captain Phasma stands, on her own, not super impressive. Kind of fits with the character, She's intimidating, but not much past that. If your targets are already stressed, it's not a huge deal. It does kind of, on the case of the Upsilon, since that's how you're going to use a lot of these, on the case of the Upsilon, it kind of helps, especially if the article indicates correctly that there are 3 crew slots on it now. But it kind of indicates that, you might be able to do that. But Phasma here would be useful for that, because, like we said, the Upsilon doesn't turn well. But if you maybe disincentivize some of those super agile ships who can, like, get out of your way not to get real close to you, this could help buy you some space you need to maybe make some of those 4-die attacks connect. As it is, hopefully she's not super expensive. She works best in a combo, which we're going to talk about next. So for our next crew, we have Petty Officer Tennyson. Now, I don't recognize this girly man face at all, but they have an interesting ability. And they are unique. They are a First Order exclusive clue. Clue? Crew. I speak words good, guys. Anyway, Officer Tennyson reads, during the activation or engagement phase, so not like in the systems phase. But, anyway, during the activation or engagement phase, after an enemy ship in your primary arc, and remember that in your arc is a geographic, not necessarily a, weapon-related one, at range 0 to 1, gains a red or orange token. If you are not stressed, you may gain 1 stress token. If you do, that ship gains an additional token of the type it gained. So, red tokens are obvious, stress. I believe ion tokens are red or orange. Let me double check all the token types really quick. But basically, what it means is if you are not stressed, this relates to the First Order's so-called faction identity of being I said last week, they're a gouge an eye to take an eye type of faction. They will stress themselves out. They will do damage to themselves. They will hurt themselves to get a better effect on the enemy. But, so you take a stress token in order to basically make the enemy take a double token. So, okay. So, the orange tokens are Disarm, Jam, and Tractor. The red tokens are Ion, Lock, and Stress. So, I don't think there's any effect to a double Disarm, but you could tap 2 jams on there. You could double up on Tractors, which, works very well with, for instance, the way that the Upsilon can, add in an additional die for Tractor beams, jamming beams, ion cannons. I don't know if you can double up on Lock. That would require some FAQ, I think, but Stress and Ion definitely. So, basically, Petty Officer Tennyson is great if you're building a debuff build for the Upsilon. Give it whatever your preferred debuffing type cannon is, Ions, Tractors, probably not Jam, and, because, it says during the engagement phase, so it also applies to the Jam action if they're in your primary arc. Just with the cannons, it makes it easier. They're front-facing cannons. They will definitely be in your arc if you're able to shoot them. You can pair him... him? I assume it's a dude because the name's Tennyson, but I don't know. It's space. They could be wrong. Anyway, yeah. The Phasma combo is there, obviously, so you can, if you're not stressed, you can double stress. It's a little dicey because you have to not be stressed. That means you have to shed stress in the Upsilon, so you gotta watch your kind of, fire duty cycle on those extra tokens. But yeah, otherwise, I think it's a very solid ability that encapsulates both the potential strengths of the Upsilon and also encapsulates a lot of what I think the faction identity for the First Order is supposed to be like. So, speaking of angry man-children faces, let's talk about the Hux. Alright, the angry ginger himself, General Hux. Though he seems to have calmed down considerably, he's no longer yelling at his crew card. Anyway, General Hux is unique. He's a single dot crew. He is a First Order only and requires the coordinate action, so, at least for the moment, he can only go on the Upsilon. And he reads, while you perform a white coordinate action, you may treat it as red. If you do, you may coordinate up to 2 additional ships of the same ship type, and each ship you coordinate must perform the same action, treating that action as red. So, Hux is a little bit different than his last effect. But basically, Hux lets you spread the coordinate love. In order to take a stress, gouge an eye to take an eye, which also would shut down Tennyson, by the way, in case you're curious. But to do so, but you get to coordinate up to 2 additional ships. So you're talking 3 total ships. They have to be the same ship type, so I assume that means in the bottom corner of the text, it reads the same ship name. So you can't, as far as we can tell, you can't coordinate like 1 SF and 2 FOs, or 2 SFs and an FO, or, an SF and a silencer. It has to all be like that. So, once again, incentivizing, say, Hux and an Upsilon riding with, 3 or 4 TIE FOs, maybe. Or maybe a couple of SF wingmen. But you coordinate to the additional ships, and each ship you coordinate must perform the same action, treating it as red. So, the cost for your broad coordinate is you take a stress, you get another action. However, depending on how you rig this, if you put him... So, range-wise, obviously, you want to put him on Major Strident, but if you put him on a low initiative like, say, Lieutenant Dormitz, you could have Hux go first, coordinate a bunch, and then have those units you coordinated dial in a blue maneuver that all you need is to, get a focus or get a target lock, or, maybe barrel roll into a position, so long as they all do the same thing. And then they can clear the stress they take, and then they can take another action. Maybe you could have them focus up as a coordinate, then take a blue, and then barrel roll into position, theoretically. Something like that. Lots of fun tricks you can do. But yeah, like I said, you probably really want to put him on Strident so you make sure you have the range to pull this trick off. I expect Hux isn't going to be too expensive because he's very narrowly specific. Like, there are a lot of qualifiers. He has a lot of rules text, actually. But I think he does definitely embody the First Order's new flavor and will probably be the cornerstone of certain builds involving their use of various TIE fighters. Alright, so we talked about the Hux. Let's talk about another angry man. So, Kylo Ren. First Order, single crew, unique, +1 force. Action, choose an enemy ship at range 1 to 3. If you do, spend 1 force token to assign the I'll show you the dark side condition to that ship. Very simple, much like his first one. Now he has an additional effect, he gives your ship +1 force. So, depending on how cheap he is, he probably won't be super cheap because he's a force user. Force is really good. That's kind of a misnomer or an oxymoron. But if you were trying to do something, you could theoretically try and rig him up on like a Petty Officer Tennyson build, so you have force tokens to spend. I'm pretty sure we know that Kylo's coming back as a pilot for the Upsilon, though, so it would probably be better because he is almost assuredly going to have 2 force as a pilot, if we haven't seen that already. I think we did, that he's only 2 force, but yeah. He will probably give you enough tokens that you can try and use that to replace the fact that, you're stressing yourself, so you're probably not getting mods to do stuff. Other than that, I've heard people talking about how, while crits are pretty nasty now, the pilot-specific crits are also differently nasty. They're not as much of what people threw around as a negative play experience. Like, they still suck, but it's not like, wow, this is really bad and there's nothing for me to interact with here. Though NPE got super buzzworded there for a long time. I feel like there were a solid 2 years where we were throwing around that term so much it never meant anything. Anyway. On his own, I mean, he's a +1 force. That's really good. He gives you an actionless mod, but then he uses the force token to do it. So, I hope they don't make him too expensive because he's kind of an all-or-nothing card, so it clearly feels like, you're not getting your most out of him all the time. Like, you can't also keep the force and then you do the other thing. But the fact that you have to spend a token now, you don't just do the action, you have to have a token, which means there's a cost to do it. There's like an opportunity cost in the game. It does strike me as good balance. I think even before this was revealed, everybody figured that's what his ability would be. But here we are. And now let's talk about Supreme Leader Snoke in spooky hologram form. I guess his hologram is so huge that he needs 2 whole crew slots. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so Snoke is clearly supposed to be the First Order version of Palp. He's got the 2 crew slots. The First Order exclusive. He's unique. He gives you +1 force, but that's how all crew do. And he says, during the systems phase, you may choose any number of ships beyond range 1. If you do, you may spend that many force pips to flip each chosen dials face up. So, obviously, some people are spooked, some people are like that really strong, but there's 2 important qualifiers. He has to spend a token for every individual ship you pick to flip their dial, and it only works beyond range 1. It's like an inverse sense. Now, on his own, Snoke only gives you 1 pip. And given that he's force, regardless of the fact that he's 2 crew slots, and he's also got a really good ability, he's going to be fucking expensive. He's going to cost a lot. And if you want to make the most out of him, I think you probably want to put him on Kylo Pilot in the Upsilon. That'll probably give you like 3 pips to work with. But then you're probably paying like half your list just for the ability to learn where your opponent's going to go. I feel like this is similar to how Luke Gunner is, but it's also honestly just even more limited, because you can argue that, well, you only need the 1 force pip that Luke gives you to use his ability, which is true. Like, he's very much a learning tool, but theoretically you could get around him anyway, but he's too fucking expensive. Nobody will really want to take him anyway, at least in a competitive scene. You're losing too many points. But Snoke's probably not going to be as expensive as Luke, but still, there's going to be a hefty cost burden, I think. And he really shouldn't be as expensive as Luke, because like I said, if you get up close, you can't do it. So, well, maybe your opponent can guess once you're that close up. That's still information he can't have. And in general, it's got some serious cost there. You gotta spend a lot of tokens. What in general I think this does is it allows you to kind of shift the balance away on perfect information, because it means that if your opponent is using like high initiative ships, you can say peer into the distance and look at their dials and have a better idea of where they're going to go. You can kind of take away some of that perfect information from them. So you could like position repositions and so on, so that what movement they've made with their super late going ship is not as effective. But on its own, I don't think it clinches anything. People will try to make it work. It's going to be friggin' expensive, especially like some people have said. Even the article suggests, oh, put him on Kylo in the same ship, you got 2 pips. That's going to cost a lot. Those are 2 Force users, both of which have fairly potent abilities and want to spend tokens. My god, no. That just sounds like a bad day. I don't think at least the Upsilon is worth it, because while it's got a lot of punch up on its own, it's not as flexible as some other ships are. But yeah, no. Snoke is okay. He's got, like I said, a potent ability that has its own inherent drawbacks. And it's going to take a lot of skill, I think. Like, everybody thinks, oh, I can just look at his dial, and then I'll know. I know everything. I don't... By default, only looking at one ship, I don't know, like, how big of a deal that is. If you can look at more ships, you can, narrow down your information. You can probably get some more out of it, but that's going to start costing you a lot of stuff. And keep in mind, obviously, because you have to look at their dials, but the system phase is after the planning phase. You have already set your own dials, so you're already locked in. It's mostly just activation and engagement you have to work with, so, like, you've already made your moves, now you just know what their moves are going to be, and you can, like I said, like, plan action choice accordingly. Anyway, that's enough talking about Snoke. So the one non-crew upgrade in all those crew upgrades that was revealed is a tech upgrade, Hyperspace Tracking data. So they've switched this a little from Hypercoms from first edition. Now it's first order only and large ship. It also uses a different art, but one that makes sense. Anyway, the rule here is setup. Before placing forces, you may choose a number between 0 and 6, treat your initiative as the chosen value during setup, and then after setup, assign 1 focus or evade token to each friendly ship at range 0 to 2. So, they've changed this up, so now it's much more first order specific, which makes sense. Obviously, they're able to take a thing that wasn't out when they made the original upgrade and now kind of adjust the context. So it's only large ships, so presumably that's just the Epsilon. And you get to set your initiative to any number between 0 to 6, not just... I think it was like 0, 6, 9, or 12, was it? It was something like that. Like, there were a couple different... Or maybe it was just 0, 6, or 12. There were a couple numbers you could pick, but now you can pick any number you want to be placed at any position you like. Obviously, combo's great with Dormits, because you pick 0, you place Dormits first, you can put units ahead of you up to range 2, and then if they're in range 2 of you, you can give them a focus or evade token. We're pretty sure the old effects of comms relay and advanced optics are gone, because advanced optics has a new effect now. Or rather, an old effect. It's got the old weapon guidance effect on it. But yeah, so we're pretty sure that the ability to bank tokens for an extended period are gone. Maybe they could do it like Afterburners, where it's like spend a charge to keep a token, so you can only keep, maybe I'd say 1 to 3 tokens. But they would probably have the rule that while you have charge, you can't have more than 1 of the token. So you still can't stack, you could just bank a token for a couple of turns. I think that would be fair. It lets you have a couple of key turns, but you can't just hoard evades and, have basically a free shield. But anyway, Hyperspace Tracking data, it's fun. Lots of clever rules with setup now. And like we said, as always, perfectly dovetails into Dormits if you're building like a discount Upsilon. Be very interested to see what this costs. And so we have come to the end of the First Order Conversion Kit preview. Really interesting choices. Like I said, I think we kind of, touched on a lot of the faction identity. The Force users maybe don't follow it, but then they just follow the general Force user rule, which is really powerful, almost rule-breaking effects that come at a super high price. But anyway, the individual crew cards definitely show that off. The First Order is a faction of coordination in their own unique way, and of, like I said, they will take stress to inflict. They will stress themselves, maybe even injure themselves, to put a further hurt on the enemy. And you can see that a lot. They're also, I think, one of the few factions that have effectively a semi-reliable stress-dealing mechanic. Like, Phasma can give you, and just fucking anybody who doesn't have a stress token, who's up close to you gets a stress token. That's pretty broad as far as abilities go. Obviously, the enemy will be able to, work around it pretty well, but you know what I mean. And then, Tennyson can double up on stress. One of the few cases where you can double stress, but obviously you have to stress yourself to do so. Actually, honestly, he's kind of like a super tactician. I wonder then if tactician might return in a certain way, but less powerful. Anyway, you can see kind of their mechanics. I think they're going to be an interesting faction. I really do want to see what they're going to do with other stuff, though. And obviously there are a couple of other ships they can work out. A lot of people are interested in the smaller type shuttle, the Xi-type. Or at least the Xi-type. I'm not 100% sure how that letter's pronounced. As maybe like a 1 or 2 crew ship that's hopefully cheaper than the Upsilon and maybe a little more flexible. A lot of people are concerned about that dial. But anyway, I hope you liked the Stealth Upsilon preview for 2E. I'm glad this one wasn't quite as long as the Resistance Conversion Kit. Also, real quick, I should shout out for people who watch my videos on Legion. They did finally announce Imperial Specialists, or not even Imperial, both Specialist packs for realsies, as I did this video. We're going to talk about them because there's literally no new news other than they revealed the Rebel Comms Technician. Anyway, maybe we'll talk about more when they do previews. So, with that, gonna let you guys go. Gonna move on. Kind of hoping for maybe some TIE-MG action next, though I could also choose to see how Resistance A-Wings are, because I had a lot of thoughts. It's actually a very popular video on this channel you can check out, is our thoughts on what the RZ2 could be in 1E anyway. And yeah, I'll let you guys go. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below, your own thoughts on the First Order as a faction on their own. And of course, you can also join our Discord, that link is in the description. And if you're new here and haven't already, please subscribe to keep track of when I do these videos, because I do them when I do them. And I will see you guys in the next video. Happy flying, everybody. Thanks for your time.